The Cancer Association of South Africa, Cancer, and I have celebrated our birthdays with gratitude, knowing that longevity is not a given, but a grace. We can influence the state of our health by living a balanced lifestyle and making smart choices. Smart choices can help to reduce the risk of cancer. A cancer survivor myself, I know that cancer can be beaten.
So Archbishop Desmond Tutu has been battling with it for more than 20 years. And our nation's beloved former President Nelson Mandela had it. And in the past week, we just laid to rest jazz legend Hugh Masekela. The prostate cancer affects 1 in every 18 men who are older than 40 in South Africa, and is the second most commonest cancer in men worldwide. Now, if detected early, prostate cancer survival rates are better than 98%. When diagnosed late, unfortunately, the chances drop drastically, as 5 men die every day because of this disease. World Cancer Day unites the world's population in the fight against cancer, taking place every year on the 4th of February. It saves millions of preventable deaths by raising awareness and education about this disease. Now, today we focus on prostate cancer. We'll be joined in studio by a health specialist from Cancer Association of South Africa, or just Cancer, a specialist radiation oncologist and vice chairman of the Prostate Cancer Foundation's Medical and Scientific Advisory Board, and a prostate cancer survivor and a patient, who's also from the Prostate Cancer Foundation and is vice chairman of the Prostate Cancer Foundation's Patient Affairs Board. Now, you maybe you want to be part of this show by asking the panel some questions or just simply sharing your views with us. In that case, the number to call is Johannesburg 714-6918 or 6919. You can also tweet us at SABC Health Talk or simply interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk. So sit back, relax, and learn from this bumper show ahead. Coming to you just after a short break. I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is Health Talk.
At MedShield Medical Scheme, we don't just talk health, we do health. SMS MedShield to 33023 or talk to your broker to get your kind of care.
It's so good, nothing else can replace just your slightest embrace. And if you only would be my own for the rest of my days, I will whisper this phrase, my darling, c'est si bon.
At MedShield Medical Scheme, we don't just talk health, we do health.
Okay, welcome. We're talking prostate cancer, and with me in the studio we have our special guests. First up, closest to me, is Prof. Michael Herbst. Prof. Herbst is a health specialist from Cancer Association of South Africa, or simply known as Cancer. Welcome to Health Talk once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, and next to him is Dr. Georges de Molinare, who's a specialist radiation oncologist, and Dr. Molinare is vice chairman of the Prostate Cancer Foundation's Medical and Scientific Advisory Board. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Georges.
Pleasure being here.
All right,
for having me.
Let's perhaps start. I mean, we're talking prostate cancer. I know everybody knows what the prostate is, but just for the sake of our viewers out there, and so we're all on the same page. Where is this prostate, and why do men need it?
The function of the prostate, it has to do with semen. It ejects at the ejaculation fluid to make the pH of the semen correct so that the semen can swim easily.
Right.
So it's a function that is essential for procreation.
Okay. All right. Okay. For men, obviously sexually active men.
Yes, yeah.
All right. So perhaps, I mean, in my introduction, I mentioned, obviously famous personalities that have struggled with disease,
Yes.
and some that have succumbed to this disease. What is the extent of prostate cancer in South Africa?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have very recent statistics.
Right.
Apart from what you've stated, that, 5 men die in South Africa every day. The latest statistics will be those of 2013 released by the National Cancer Registry. And unfortunately, they are only pathology-based. So we don't know any of the other statistics that could be lost along the way. But it is quite a remarkable figure. We have just over 8,000 men diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, white men and black men share about 3,000 each, and then the other 2,000 are shared by the Asian and the colored population.
Now, what would be the proportion? I know that it would be a guess, a proportion of those that get diagnosed with cancer, because I would imagine there's a whole lot of people that are walking around with cancer, perhaps early stages, but they don't know.
Well, if we look at what the international literature says, it says, and this is now based on American figures, that by age 80% of men will have one or other form of prostate cancer.
Right.
Very basic, most probably not endangering their lives at all, to all through the various stages of cancer. So it is a disease of aging.
Right.
We tend to, as we get older, to really develop problems with the prostate gland.
We're going to come back and kind of look at who's at risk. But perhaps, Dr. Georges, if you could just help us, how does this cancer develop? What triggers this thing?
Yeah, I suppose that's $1 million question.
Yeah.
We do know there are several factors that play a role.
Yeah.
And specifically, cancer of the prostate, we don't know at all. What we do know is that it grows under the influence of testosterone. Testosterone doesn't cause the prostate cancer, because then everyone will have it.
Yeah.
But prostate cancer cells seem to thrive under if there's testosterone to stimulate them.
Yeah, yeah. So we hear again. So how does it then develop clinically, and what are the typical symptoms, if we can say that?
Right. In Afrikaans, of course, there's a very nice saying. They describe the prostate gland as the oommansklier.
Yeah.
It's lying underneath the bladder, and the urethra that voids the bladder goes through it. So if there's any swelling of the prostate, that tends to obstruct the urethra. It means the men cannot void their bladder properly, and that means that they have to go regularly. They can't pass a public toilet without going in.
Right.
And
But you mentioned a very interesting one, yeah, and I think it's an important time to bring this in. You say one of the symptoms, I would imagine you're saying, is an enlarged prostate.
Yes.
We often hear about enlarged prostate being a common phenomenon. Are all enlarged prostates necessarily cancer?
No, not at all.
Right.
I would say the majority are benign hypertrophy.
Right.
So they don't have cancer, and there's no relationship between the two. Some people can have both,
right,
but there's no one doesn't lead to the other.
Okay. But people need nevertheless not ignore the fact that they have an enlarged prostate,
yes,
and they're struggling to pass urine.
Yeah.
All right. Any other symptoms as this develops?
Unfortunately, not. Most of the symptoms that you can really typically describe as cancer symptoms occur once it has already spread.
Right.
And then it's too late. You cannot cure them anymore. So the local symptoms are, as I said, a problem with voiding. And you have to get up at night to pass water. And although the majority are not cancer, it is important to exclude the cancer. So they have to be examined by a doctor. the famous finger test applies.
Which we're going to talk about soon. But we hear about so-called staging of cancer. Just in simple terms, you don't want to be too technical, but just, people often talk about, I'm stage 3, I was told I'm stage 4. What does this actually mean? What is the different stages?
A stage of cancer is where the cancer itself is. If it's a stage 1, it's confined to the prostate. And that one is then divided in an A and B, according to what you feel and according to what the scans show.
Right.
In stage 2, it has involved the capsule of the prostate already. And then it can spread to the lymph nodes around the prostate, and it can also spread with the bloodstream, and then it can be anywhere in the body.
Okay, when I come back, perhaps in the next segment, I'll ask you about the implications of the staging. But Prof, just how level of awareness in society on these issues? I mean, sometimes I think we take things for granted that, people know about these things. What's the level of awareness like?
We'd like to believe that men know about this.
Right.
But I can tell you that if you start talking to men about this, some of them are surprised to even know where the prostate really is in the body. I have found this, although they will jokingly talk about it. We really need a lot of work to do amongst men to make them aware, and that they have a responsibility for their health, not only for themselves, but for all the people around them who want them around.
Right.
So that we will know shortly after age 40, in South Africa especially, men should start going for a PSA test, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, and then the famous digital rectal exam that Dr. Molenaar has been talking about.
Is there any stigma attached to prostate cancer?
Well, there is stigma attached to cancer, yes, we know. That a lot of people will not talk about it. I can remember when I was a child, if anybody had cancer, they'd put their hand in front of the mouth when they even uttered the word. Or they would say, so-and-so's got the big C. Yes, there is still a lot about cancer, and I think it's because we don't talk about it enough.
Last question, Dr. Georges. Is diagnosis with prostate cancer necessarily a death sentence?
Not at all. In the early stages, the vast majority can be cured.
Okay.
Therefore, the sooner it's diagnosed, the better.
Okay.
Because those patients can be cured.
Yeah. So it can be beaten.
Very much so.
I think it's on that note that we'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we now talk about impact, causes, and risk factors. Please stay with us.
MedShield Medical Scheme doesn't just cover you when you're ill, we'll help you stay well. MedShield, embracing our members in good health since 1968. SMS MedShield to 33023 or talk to your broker to get your kind of care. If we're talking health, then let's talk seriously.
I'm Jeremy Prince, 61 years old, at the age of 57 being diagnosed with prostate cancer. In our surroundings, there's no information about prostate cancer. And as a man, you don't want to acknowledge that there's something wrong with your body. So I carried on. I used my own remedies until my prostate didn't work properly. Me and my wife's sex life has been affected, and I had to gather knowledge around prostate cancer so that we can deal with this effectively. Cancer became aware of me after my operation, and they invited me to tell my story. It changed my life dramatically. You need other people with knowledge around you so that you can be positive. Go yearly for your screening test so that you can be certain there's nothing wrong with your prostate or your testicles.
All right, this is the subject of our topic today, prostate cancer, and with me in studio is Prof. Michael Herbst from Cancer and Dr. Georges de Molinare from the Prostate Cancer Foundation, and we're joined by another special guest, Thulani Sibisi. Thulani is a well-known runner, I'm sure many of you will know, and he's also somebody from Prostate Cancer Foundation and is living with prostate cancer. But before I speak to him, let's take Anonymous on the line from Devon. Anonymous, welcome.
Yebo sawubona.
Yebo baba.
Yebo. Mina kuneminyakana umfana lo waka left engazathi kwaphela nje kwasala kwaba empty kwaba ngathi kunamanzi.
Right.
Kwase ukuthi ke owaka right yena uyazwela uma ethintela. Kodwa kusho ukuthi ke nakuyena uthanda ukuba nobuhlungu obu-abnormal.
All right.
Uma uthinta nje kuyazwela kakhulu.
Okay, so ufuna ukwazi ukuthi kuyini lo?
Ukuthi kumina kuyini ke
All right, okay, thank you. All right, thank you very much. So what he's saying basically is that over the past years he's experienced something strange with his testicles. The left one just simply disappeared and he can't feel it anymore. And the right one is a bit hypersensitive, and he'd like to know what is going on. Any relation? Could this be associated with prostate cancer? Let's give it to you.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right. So in this instance, I would imagine he needs to go and consult his
He
doctor.
needs-
Absolutely.
And so that they try and
That
get
is a matter
what-
of urgency, you know. That's something that you don't play around with.
Right. Okay. Let's talk to Mr. Sibisi. Thulani, perhaps let's just ask, both of you gentlemen are from the Prostate Cancer Foundation. Perhaps let me start with you, Dr. Molinare, de Molinare. What is the Prostate Cancer Foundation and what do you do?
The foundation was started up about 12, 13 years ago, and the main thrust is to inform the public, to give talks and spread information about prostate cancer.
Okay. And you obviously are on the Medical and Scientific Advisory Board, and Mr. Sibisi is on Patients Affairs. Tell us about your work at the Prostate Cancer Foundation.
After I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, I felt it's important for me to get that message through the township because it's not available.
Right.
There is no education about prostate cancer in anywhere.
So when were you diagnosed?
In 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I got involved with Prostate Cancer Foundation as ambassador. But I was just actually given an opportunity to serve as a deputy chair of Patient Affairs to get that message through wherever possible.
Right.
And I try to go to races, talk to the community, into the township, because I think you are aware that nobody wants to speak about the prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And I think the reason being it's because of where it is, where most men have got that respect that they shouldn't be speaking about it.
Right.
But that's why it's important for us to speak about it and get that message through, because at the end of the day, by keeping quiet, we are not actually addressing the problem.
Right. You're one of the top runners this country has ever produced. Just tell us how being diagnosed with prostate cancer had an impact on your life.
My life has changed completely. And, one strange enough, you think when you are a sport person, especially you are not drinking or smoking, and you're not going to be one of the victims that I am. And I see it even when I'm speaking to the talks and all that. People takes it very easy. And it hurts me a lot. The reason being, my life is not the same anymore. It's completely changed. There are things I can't do. I can't run as I used to be, and I can't sleep properly. I can't exercise the way I can exercise. But at the same time, I would say the reason of being involved in exercising, it plays a very, very vital role.
Yeah, very interesting. Maybe just there, let's talk about risk factors for a while, and perhaps let me start with you, Dr. Dupulinoro. We're told that sometimes, you can't choose your parents. Let's talk about genetic factors.
Well, we know that the Afro-Americans, there's a higher incidence of prostate cancer. Whether that relates to our South African situation, we are not certain yet. As Professor mentioned just now, we know about 3,000 diagnoses in white men and 3,000 in black men. That 3,000 in black men must be absolutely underrated. There must be far more.
That's right.
I mean, we are only a few million white men, and there's so many more million black men. If the incidence were the same, one would expect them we would expect them to have at least 30,000.
But it's not the case.
But it's not the case. They're not diagnosed.
And with the underdiagnosing, we now know, the statistics they tell us that 1 in 9 white men stand at risk of getting prostate cancer. But strangely enough, with black men, 1 in 29. So that again proves what you're saying. We know, for instance, in Limpopo, that the incidence of prostate cancer is much higher than 1 in 29. But we can only work on stats on paper.
Is it perhaps about late presentation, if you compare the two?
Well, I think it may be that, but the start of it all would be lack of access.
Yeah.
Absolutely, a lack of access. And sorry to say, but the health department doesn't go a long distance in making it possible for more men to come.
Are there any other risk factors? I mean, lifestyle factors. We told people that smoke, people that are not physically active, people that are obese, and so on and so forth. How important are those? We have an example here of Tulani SABC, who's an active man who basically lived a perfect life.
Didn't smoke.
Didn't drink alcohol, didn't abuse drugs, and so on.
The important message is this, that nothing can guarantee that you will not get it.
Right.
But your lifestyle does have an effect on what the incidence of cancer. The most important one is probably genetically, if your father or your uncles had prostate cancer, your chances are much higher than somebody who hasn't got a family history at all.
Yeah.
Diet plays a role. Overweight, being obese, is definitely plays a role.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as we can say.
Just to clear one myth, you mentioned earlier the issue of testosterone. And some people have suggested that too much sexual activity or higher levels of testosterone may have some effect. Please, let's just put this to bed.
I do not think that plays a role.
It doesn't play a role at all.
All right. Okay. You wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say something in that, we're talking about the incidence, all this type of thing. And what is very interesting lately in the literature, it's becoming very clear that an increased incidence of especially BRCA1 and BRCA2 breast cancer amongst your women's side of the family, like a mother, a sister, a grandmother, there tends to be a high incidence of prostate cancer in the men. That is something that's coming up more and more in the scientific literature.
Very interesting indeed. Let's take another anonymous from Pretoria this time. Welcome, anonymous.
Hello?
Are you there? Yes.
Yes.
Your question, please.
My question is,
Say that again.
Yeah, I'm so sequence of 29. Each choice last time was 9.9. So my the body and then still go and something over that.
Yeah, we really are battling. We're battling. We'll see if we can get you back on a better line. But all I could get was his PSA is 9.9. I guess when we talk screening, we'll come back. But let's see if we can get this person back on a better run? Because, you know, it's quite a bit difficult to comment if we didn't quite get the question. Now, back to as cancer now. You know, we've heard from Tulani Sibisi in terms of how being diagnosed with cancer has had an impact on his personal life. What is your experience generally, you know, when you look at the community that suffers from this?
Well, you know, we find that it definitely changes the social life of somebody. Because there's very often dribbling, a little bit of incontinence that goes together with the moment the bladder starts holding about 100 or 200 mils of urine, there's some leakage. Right. And if people are not very careful, there's always leakage into your underwear and even in your trousers. And if you don't pay attention to it every day, we've had people complaining and they're saying, you know, my family says that I smell, because they can eventually smell the urine. So it does change the whole social life of anybody. You don't sleep well at night because some people must get up 2, 3, 4 times. They can sleep for about 2 hours and then they're woken up by a little bit of urine in the bladder and they've got to go. Yeah. And then they stand for quite a while trying to get that little bit of urine out. So they stand up tired in the morning and have a very difficult day, only to go into another night of very little sleep.
Might be difficult. Well, let's go for another break. When we come back, we talk the most important part now. How do you prevent this and perhaps screening? Stay with us.
MedShield, embracing our members in good health since 1968. MedShield Medical Scheme, we don't just talk health, we do health.
Having your prostate checked is not such a bad way to spend a minute when you consider the alternative.
Okay, welcome back. If you just joined us, thank you so much. You're at the right place. We're talking prostate cancer with my special guest, Professor Michael Herbst from Cancer, Dr. Georges de Molinare from the Prostate Cancer Foundation, and of course, Tulani Sibisi, also from the Prostate Cancer Foundation. Before we continue our discussion on prevention, let's take 2 callers on the line. Let's start with Anonymous from Orange Farm. Anonymous, welcome.
Thank you, being one of your guests. My age is 65, right?
Yes.
Yes. And now, you know what happened? the first problem that what will happen first is that my manhood becomes very little, small.
Yeah.
And the back of my balls seems to be becoming small, and my back seems to be empty. And then, I went to the bar and then they check it. But twice they check it, but they don't do nothing. They just give me tablets to urinate easy and give me about 3 months to come back, just like that. They don't operate it.
All right.
So,
but they didn't say you have cancer, did they?
Yeah, they said they just said it's a prostate.
Okay.
He said prostate is, I got a file here with me,
All right. Okay,
So
thank
they
you.
don't- yeah.
Thank you very much for your question. We'll come back to you just now. Let's go to Anonymous from Pretoria. Anonymous, welcome. Okay, not there. All right. I don't know who wants to take the question, Dr. Morenara. It sounds like, he has a benign prostatic hyperplasia. And
Yes, I hope that when the doctor did do a digital rectal examination,
Right,
because they feel the prostate feels different
right.
to the finger,
Right.
and if it's irregular, if it's knobby,
Yeah.
then it's more dangerous than if it's smooth.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the issue then of prevention, if you like. Perhaps we've spoken, very quickly about lifestyle factors. Do you perhaps just want to comment or two just on the lifestyle factors
Yes.
as a form of prevention?
I think lifestyle is definitely plays an important role in reducing the risk. From the Cancer Association side, we don't like to talk prevention,
Right.
because it's impossible to really prevent, but to reduce the risk.
Right.
Live a healthy lifestyle. Don't smoke. Try and avoid alcohol or really limit its intake. Limit the intake of red meat. It's been shown to have a link not only on prostate cancer but some of the other cancers as well. Then to eat a healthy, balanced lifestyle with plenty of fruit and vegetables. Now, this isn't easy for the majority of our population, because they're barely surviving, living out in the rural areas. And it's very difficult to go out there and say, have 5 portions of vegetables and fruit every day.
Right.
They don't even have that in a week, most of the people.
Right.
But yes, diet and all the other things have a major role as far as balanced lifestyle is concerned.
And I suppose it's the same message we send out all the time about lifestyle, healthy lifestyle, isn't that so?
Absolutely.
All right, let's try one more time. Anonymous from Pretoria. Anonymous, welcome.
Hello, very well.
All right, we can hear you now.
Okay. Prostate, it's prostate cancer, but when I'm on it's a 9.9.
Right.
And then ibe khona umzimba wami soqala kuba nzima kusho ukuthi ubadesho nesikhumba leshiwa ngomzimba bathi yaspray nomzimba wami yabo.
Right.
So and then amalo kuzala mabholo lawo atawuba mancane yahamba phela appear
Right. So,
Yeah.
have you been to the doctor for treatment, or where do you go for treatment?
ngaya esibhedlela ngala lesibhedlela bathi bangisiza mangifikile ke bathi bayathetha ngazi ukuthi ngoba abantwana abanesidingo boyizani bangifikile kuphela banginika date ngabuyela ngayinuclear. So right, ngasuka i-nuclear ke banginika date ya 2023 something like that next month.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Anonymous. So just briefly, he says he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and nothing has been done on him yet. His PSA is currently at about 9.9. He's given a date to come back after 3 months. He's experiencing certain, symptoms like, his testicles are retracting a bit, and his skin feels a little different and so on. He's probably worried. And I'd like you to keep that at the back of our minds when we start talking treatment, because the whole concept of, watch and treat and watch, or whatever, watch and wait. If we can touch on that, unless if you want to say something now. Yes, Nda.
I think it's important I mean, to make people aware that hospital plays a very vital role in understanding that when we go there, we need service.
Right.
Because when we start asking questions, some of the doctors, they don't show that patience enough.
Right.
And I think somehow, somewhere, they've got to be told that patient is very important.
Right.
When you go there and you look for information, you have to be provided with that information. I've experienced it.
Quite true, isn't it? I mean, here's a classical case of somebody who clearly is under some form of treatment, but has not been explained or does not understand what...
Not been informed.
Or not been adequately informed
That's
of
right.
what's happening. So,
see, this is part of my problem that I mentioned earlier, is access.
Right.
It's not only access to a medical service, it's access to information, which is crucial.
Right.
Because it is my body, but I am not learned in anatomy and physiology, in medical sciences, so I need to have access to information to understand what is happening in my body and what can be done for me and what is the best, so that I can make an informed decision together with my doctor on what the treatment should be.
right. So, Dr. Manara, let's talk about now screening. We hear that there's two forms of screening. It's the digital examination and the blood test, so-called PSA. Who needs to screen? Perhaps let's start there.
Yeah, it's advised that every male person in South Africa should have a PSA test from the ages of 45 or 50.
So are we saying before that age it's not possible to get prostate cancer?
It's highly unlikely.
Yes.
It's not impossible, but it is highly unlikely.
Right.
There are different reasons for an elevated PSA, prostatitis being one. Massaging the prostate or doing a DRE may push up the PSA for a short while.
Cycling.
Cycling.
Active cycling is another problem. Shouldn't have that for about at least 48 hours before you go for a PSA test.
Right.
No ejaculation for about 48 hours. Whatever the causes the ejaculation.
Right.
So it's ejaculation shouldn't have it for about 48 hours
Right.
to prevent a false high reading.
Tulan, let me just come back to you quickly. Before you were diagnosed, did you ever check your prostate? Did you ever have reason to want to check your prostate?
Not at all. And that's the reason why I spoke about it from the beginning.
Right.
That education plays a very vital role,
Right.
which is not there. I mean,
Right.
and that's the reason also why I'm involved
Right.
in educating people about it.
Okay.
Because we have to check, especially as black men now. It's huge out there. At the age of 40, go out and do the test.
Right.
And we are not doing the test.
The one common thing that people will tell you is, at least some men will complain to say, but hang on, why do I need to have this dreaded test, finger test, when it's just as simple as a blood test? Just take my blood, don't do a rectal examination. Your comment on that?
Yeah, that is... if it's unpleasant for the patient, I can assure you it's just as unpleasant for the doctor, but he doesn't mind, he does it.
Yeah.
And therefore the patient also should be willing to undergo that. It's not a painful thing.
Yeah.
It's a
Over
bit
in
of
seconds.
Yeah, it's over in seconds. It's a bit uncomfortable, but it's mainly a feeling that you feel
Strange.
that you feel abused or something. But it is not the case.
Right. But do both tests, the blood test and the rectal examination, achieve the same sort of results? Are they checking the same thing?
You use both
Right.
together.
Right. So both are just as important.
Because a low PSA doesn't mean that you are cancer-free.
Right.
Always. As well as increased PSA doesn't always say that you've got cancer.
Right.
So it's really a combination of the two.
Yes, Tulan.
I think it's more psychological, more than anything, not to do it.
Right.
But I want to make it very clear to all men there. How it was picked up from me was through that first test with that
There you
finger.
have it.
Before even blood test and that, there is a problem there.
Right.
I encourage men to go out and do that. There's nothing about it. I don't even feel bad about it, that I've done it.
Right. And just the last question, the frequency. So you're not at risk or you're at risk. You've been once to a doctor, you did this, and the PSA you were told is normal. When next should you do it?
Until fairly recently, it was advised that people should go every year. But that is not, if your PSA has been normal for 2 years or 3 years, then you can make it a bit longer. But then don't get over ambitious and wait 10 years. Then you should have it at least every 3 years.
And I would imagine the level of the PSA, let's just say that it's high without all of those things that we mentioned, has some significance in terms of prognosis. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yes, and especially if it's linked to cancer.
Right, okay. Perhaps that we keep for just when we come back. We need to go for a quick break. When we come back, we talk treatment options. Please stay with us.
MedShield Medical Scheme doesn't just cover you when you're ill, we'll help you stay well.
South Africa is in need of a frank dialogue about the state of our nation. My name is Omkhopotse JJ Tabane. Join me on Frankly Speaking every Sunday at 8:30. Come now, let's talk frankly.
We pump up your energy, keeping you in action through sports updates while resting at home. This is what's happening in your world of sport every weekend.
In the second half, Kolisi and Jaco Kriel combined well, and Kolisi scored his second try. He was also named man of the match.
Confusion from the West defenders gifted Patosi with a close-range goal.
In the 10th round, he pinned a visibly fatigued McGregor on the ropes and hammered the Irishman before the referee stepped in to stop the bout.
He's a tough competitor. He's a lot more experienced, especially in the layer.
Keep it locked on Sports Live every Saturday and Sunday at 20:30.
If we're talking health, then let's talk seriously.
Okay, welcome back. We're talking prostate cancer, and we're going to be talking treatment options and support for prostate cancer with my guest, Prof. Michael Heps from Cancer, Dr. Georges de Molinare from the Prostate Cancer Foundation, and Tulani Sibisi also from the Prostate Cancer Foundation. Now, we have a caller on the line, and after which we're going to take a few tweets that have just come in. Moses, welcome to Health Talk.
Yeah, hello, how are you?
We're good. How are you, Moses?
I'm well, thank you. Yeah, I just like to say I had, I think you call it radical operation on my prostate.
Right.
In 2005.
Yes.
Now, prior to that, I was having tests every year for 10 years, taking blood. And they said, you might have cancer, we're not sure. The blood is not so clear. And I still wonder why that had to happen. But anyway, I had the operation 2005. I'm 74 years of age now, and it was quite good. And what I want to say is that men don't talk about these things. I don't know why.
Right.
And because when I realized that my urine was coming out very slow, I was too, how can I say, ashamed to share it with others.
Right.
But my boss asked me that you seem to have a problem. I asked him if I could take a few days off to have a medical checkup. I said, but you said I don't see anything wrong. So he called me to his office and he told me, look, you must have your PSA checked. I didn't know anything about it. You know, and I think men should talk about this. Yeah. And after having that operation, I think I'm one of those fortunate ones that I don't have incontinence, you know, and in the bedroom things seem to be okay. Not the same, but okay.
Great
that's
stuff.
That's what I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that very important call. Thank you so much. We've just got a few tweets that I'd like to just go through quickly, and thereafter we continue our discussion on prostate cancer. The first one, Tebza King says, why should we test for prostate cancer at a late age of 40 plus? Why not when we're 25? Patrick says, because I have an enlarged prostate, I get my doctor to do a simple blood test for PSA each year. Last time it was just 2.4, hashtag prostate cancer. Healing Prostate says, prostate cancer is one of the most common cancers affecting older men in developed countries. Very true. And Mike says, men, hashtag prostate cancer is on the rise. So make it a point to get tested and monitor the results. Have your PSA checked. So true. And Gordon says, early diagnosis saves life. A simple blood test, hashtag PSA. It's the best chance currently available. And Adela says, men not seeking help for prostate cancer symptoms and women avoiding cervical screening due to embarrassment. We must end the stigma about genitalia. So true, man. And Sarah says, now come on guys, stop being embarrassed about having your prostates checked. We all know where it is. Sooner you get it checked, the better. Right. So those are our tweets, and I'm sure you'd like to comment about that very positive call from Moses.
Absolutely. I think it was so nice to hear from somebody who has had the experience. But what concerns me is that he isn't sure that he was really diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Yeah.
And yet had
according
surgery.
To his blood tests over the years,
yes,
that it was all of a sudden. It was almost like it's borderline. Perhaps you may want to comment on that.
The PSA, which is not considered to be abnormal if it's over 4, is an indication, but it isn't the final thing. You cannot diagnose cancer just on the PSA. People with no cancer can have a PSA of 15 or 20 even. We had a caller saying his was 9.9. That does not say that he does have cancer. He may not have cancer, but it indicates that you must do further investigations to see whether or not that person has cancer.
All right. Let's talk about the treatment option. Now, let's say somebody goes to his doctor and has his PSA high and does a biopsy, gets told that you have confirmed cancer of the prostate. And I'd like us to bring back that issue around the staging now, whether or not it has influence on a treatment plan, as it were.
Very much so. If the diagnosis has been made, the first thing you have to do is investigate whether or not there's already spread outside the prostate. You can do a bone scan, but the bone scan only, the chances of picking up anything on a bone scan, if the PSA is below 15 is very, very little. I think far too many bone scans are done on patients whose PSA is 8 or 9, because that will never be a positive bone scan. The chances of it having been spread at that stage is absolutely minimal. But one can do an MR of the local lesion, an X-ray examination to see what the prostate looks like. They can even pick the cancer up inside the prostate, and it's important then to show whether that is still confined to the prostate or has spread locally outside the prostate.
Okay, so in principle you're saying the first, after diagnosis, to see where the cancer is in terms of staging, whether it's confined to the prostate or whether it's spread.
Yes.
And what are the treatment options available?
If it is localized still to the prostate, it is very much curable. And there are two ways of curing it, by either radiation or by radical surgery.
Right.
Radiation, there are two forms mainly. These days it's they implant radioactive seeds in the prostate that stay there for the rest of your life, but radiates it from inside. And the operation then is to remove the prostate.
Completely.
The cure rates are comparable. The complication rate is different, and the type of the complications you can get is different. We had a discussion at the Prostate Cancer Foundation recently, and the big message is, if a prostate cancer diagnosis has been made, there is no tearing hurry that tomorrow you must have your operation. This is usually a very slow-growing cancer. Do some research, talk to different people, and decide which treatment you would prefer.
Tilani, just let's bring you in for a while. What treatment have you had?
Mine was diagnosed, I would say, a bit late, called stage 3. So I did the biopsy and it determined that I had to do the surgery. So they had to remove both balls. But I don't regret about it, because I couldn't urine at all. But straight after that surgery, I was able to urine after a week. And since then, I'm able to. And I'm also taking the medication. It wasn't an easy decision because it affects your manship. But I had to choose between life or death, and then I chose life.
Right. That concept that we spoke about earlier, watch and wait. Your comment on that?
At our discussion last week, it was also mentioned that this is not done enough. People are rushed into making a decision, whereas by selecting your patients, it doesn't apply to everyone, one can avoid radical treatment by checking the PSA a few months later, but if the biopsy shows that it's an aggressive tumor, then of course then you must have treatment. But the diagnosis, histological diagnosis of prostate cancer varies from what we call 6 to 10. And the higher it is, the more aggressive the cancer is. And with the aggressive ones, you know you can't play around. But the low-grade ones, you have time.
All right. In the last few seconds left, support to people with prostate cancer that you as...
I think the very important thing is to follow the example of Mr. SABC there, is to join a support group. They are available. The Cancer Association has support groups in many of its cancer care centers, and they can, if they don't have access to a telephone of their own, they can phone the toll-free line, 0800 22 66
All right, we're gonna put that number on the screen, but let me take this opportunity to thank you, gentlemen, very much for
this you very much for having
informative show. And folk, that's all we have for you tonight and today, of course. And of course, we thank you for your calls, your tweets, and we see you back next week, same time. And until then, do take care.
Thank you.
Medfield Medical Scheme, we don't just talk health, we do health.
Today on Rights and Recourse we will unpack